What's going on, everybody? It's Carmine from Barmine Tech, and today we're going to be talking about another dashboard option for your Homelab. So we worked with a bunch of different dashboards in the past, and today we're going to be working on one called Glance. Glance was actually brought to my attention by a friend who recently got into Proxmox. He really got into all the Proxmox helper scripts, which was really helpful for, first dipping your toe in, and he stumbled upon Bezel. That's how we learned about Bezel, and he also worked with Glance. That's how we learned about Glance. So that's what we're going to be working with today. Glance is another dashboard option that compares similar to Homepage. So it does use a YAML-based file to set up the config. It's not a graphical page like Homar or Dashy or Flame. It's not a super complex setup, and they actually have a lot of pre-configured options that you can just paste out of their config files. I really do like this dashboard option for that. But let's get right into setting this up. One more thing is that Glance can be set up multiple different ways. They have Docker, there's a script on the Proxmox helper script site, but today we're going to be working with that just because that's the environment that I've been working with lately. But if you do want to set this up in Docker, you can, and I'll show you on the GitHub really quick. So like I said, there is a script for this. I'm over here at the community site. I'm just going to search to make it a lot easier because for some reason it's listed under Monitor and Analytics instead of Dashboards. Not sure why, but that's where it is. And over here, I can just open up the site and it's at their GitHub. So this is what Glance is going to look like. This is like their bare bones. This is your first dashboard that you can make. This is a pre-configured one that you could actually work with, that we're going to be working with too. The setup is available through Docker Compose, so you can do it manually. There's a manual binary. So there are some options, like here's for the Proxmox helper scripts, NixOS. You do have some options, and today we're going to be working with Proxmox helper scripts, like I said. But the configuration of the dashboard is going to stay similar whether you're going to be doing it in Docker or whatever. The actual YAML file is going to be the same. So let's get right into this. First thing we need to do is come over here and grab the script. I'm going to come over here to my mini lab. We're going to be working with the Barmine Tech server. I'm going to open up a shell, make this a little bit bigger, paste this in. We're going to run. Now it's going to ask me if I want to make the container. I do, and then it's going to go through the normal options. So I'm just going to go through this really quick and install it, and we'll be right back. You can see I just ran through the advanced options really quick just so I can change the container ID, and now it's going to start the install. So we'll be back in about a minute or so. It's a pretty quick install, and we'll continue with this. Like I said, the install is pretty quick, and after it's all done, it's going to tell you how to access it. So I'm just going to copy this, and then we're going to open it up in a new browser. Now to start off, this is the actual one that I've been working with, and this is what we're going to actually edit later on, but this is the Glance dashboard that I've been working with a little bit. The setup's not too bad. It was a little tricky at first just to get the syntax right, but this is what you can build out to, and there's a lot of different options. I mean, you don't even need to have it like this. There's different widgets and little containers, so we'll get more into that in a little bit. Now, this is the first dashboard you're going to get when you first open it up, and if we come back to their site, there's actually pre-configured pages, so you can come over here, and if you see one that you like, you can come over here and just actually grab that code. And they have a few different ones, so like if you're more of a finance or interested in the markets or maybe gaming, they have some that are pre-configured with feeds based on that. If you want just something simple, you can come over here and grab that. So let's say just for fun, I want to come over here and I want to grab the simple one. So I'll just come over here and copy this. And now we can start to edit it. So I'm just going to come back over here. I'm going to open up a shell into my container. And we'll make it a little bit bigger. So now we're going to go with cd/opt/glance. Now if I do an ls, you can see over here there's a glance, and then there's glance.yaml. Glance.yaml is the file we're going to be editing. And this glance over here is actually a script to reload it. Glance does have an auto reload feature, so as you make changes and you save them to the file, it should reload, but if it doesn't, you could run this instead of reloading everything. Sometimes it doesn't always work fully, you just got to restart the service, but usually for the most part I found it works pretty well. So I'll just do a quick nano glance.yaml, and now we can remove everything below page, so we could just do Control K since we're using nano. And now we can just paste everything back in. And if I Control O this, it's going to write it to the file. And if I refresh, it should reload with our new config. And being that it's spinning like that, it means it probably did. So you can see now I have a basic one that I could just work with. And we can change it as we want. So we do have some services here that are some basic ones. And if I do want to change those to maybe some services that I do host, I can just come down here and we can start working with that. So I can change this to mini lab, And then I could adjust this to my domain for my mini lab. So I could just do minilab.barmine.org, and then I can change this over here to Proxmox. And now I'm going to go over more of this in detail in a second. So I'm just going to Control O that really quick. And now it's going to reload again, and you can see my mini labs here, and it's actually checking the URL to make sure that it's alive. And if I come over here, it's going to open it up to my mini lab. So if you notice that I just typed in Proxmox over here, and it has this little icon, and then I was able to just do my URL. So I do have a proxy running in the house, so I can resolve everything back to a domain. If you don't and you just have IPs, that's fine. You could just put your IP in here. And then next we can talk about the icons. So I'm going to open up those really quick. So over here is the doc of how to configure everything, and to get to this, it's just over here under configuration off the GitHub. So I was just working with this before, and now if we pull this up, we can see that we're working with the monitor type. And if we come up to this, it's going to reference similarly what was in that pre-config file. So you can see over here we have the icon tag, and it's using /assets/jellyfin, which we're not going to use. And if we scroll down a little bit, they actually have a way to use some different assets. So there's two different ones. There's simple icons or dashboard icons. Dashboard icons are a little bit nicer. If you use the server icons, it's going to be these flat kind of grayscale images, where if we use the dashboard ones, it's going to be more color and kind of a little more vibrant. So if you come over to the dashboard icons GitHub, you could actually just come over here and search them, and then you could look up by whatever you want to do. So let's say I'm working with Proxmox. I just want to come over here and grab that, and then you can grab whichever one you want. So I'm just going to click copy, and then I can come over here and edit it. Now it's still the same name, but I'm just going to change it to DI, and if I hit enter again, it'll refresh, and you can see over here that now I have the colored icon, and if I click it, it still comes over here to my Proxmox environment. So this is really more of a basic configuration. Maybe you just have a few services, whatever it might be. You have some bookmarks. You could of course come down and edit those as well. And we can just come over here and change these to whatever we might want. So if I want to update this one, I could do Barmine Tech YouTube, and we could just change the URL right here. And if I just Control O that really quick, you can see now it's going to update my file again, and it'll bring me over here to the Barmine Tech YouTube channel. So like I said, this is a very basic version of it, and it works really well. But maybe you want something a little more detailed, and that's where this one that I've been building out. So I did use one of the other dashboard options, and it actually references this one that they have on their homepage. So if you want it, so their GitHub is a little confusing. I've had some different links where sometimes it has it over here and it doesn't. I'm not really sure, but if we come over to config, and if I come over to glance.yaml, this is actually the demo page that they were working with. So you could just copy this, and if you come back over here to here, and this is that YAML file we were working with, you can just paste it in here if you want. If you want to build out with that one, and you're going to have a similar page to this, or what shows over here on the home page. So like I was saying, maybe you want something a little bit more on your dashboard, and maybe that this simple config over here isn't just enough for you, and that's fine. And this whole dashboard is very configurable. You can make it so it has columns with different widgets in each column. So like over here I have the calendar was a pre-config. Over here was like an RSS feed. I didn't really want that, so I changed it over to bookmarks. Originally videos was over here in the middle, reference and YouTube videos. I moved it over here, and I just put in some of my channels that I like to watch. And then I started putting my services that I host in the middle. Over here the weather was default. I put in my DNS stats. It does accept Pi-hole. It's a little tricky to set up with Pi-hole v6, but it does work. And then over here is the default releases. So I'm just going to go over some more of the config on this one too, just to see how I would add services and similar. So like I said, we're going to come over here and start working with my glance dashboard that I was making for my Homelab. And you can see it's broken into columns. So it states columns, and then it goes into sizes. So small would be for the left, and then a full one would go into the right, and then we have this small down here again for the right side, and you can see that's that right column over here. So we are just going to talk about how to set it up really quick for some more services. So I'm just going to come below the line that I have, and I'm going to tab over. I'll do title, and then put a colon, and I'll do Portainer. Now I'll go under again, do URL, and for me it's https://portainer.barmine.org, and then I'll do icon::di, and I'm hoping there is a Portainer one available, and there is, so I could just use that. So I'll come back up here, I'll just Control O it really quick, and now it should update. And you can see over here, here's my Portainer. It has the icon in there, so it's all good. And then you could just keep going on, adding any service uses you have. So it is pretty easy. You would just have to go with monitor, and then just keep putting it from there. So you could just keep going with these 3 lines. You just do title, whatever you want to call it, the URL or the IP to the service, and then the icon if you do want to have the icon in there. The next one I'll reference just because I was actually really confused setting this up, and my friend who introduced me to Glance actually helped me figure this out, is DNS stats. So this is going off my Pi-hole instance that I'm using. If you do AdGuard, it does support that as well. It does support V6 or higher for Pi-hole, or lower if you're not upgraded on V6 yet. And it also supports, I don't know, whatever the current version of AdGuard is. So when it comes to configuring Pi-hole, it's going to be under another type, which would be DNS stats. And if we come over to the config, I can actually search Pi-hole, and you can see it's going to start referencing this DNS stats. So this is the base config, and they do have the YAML code pre-configured for AdGuard, but if you do want to do Pi-hole, it's pretty easy. They have it over here, and honestly, I'm going to show you my config because, like I said, my buddy helped me with this and made it a lot easier. So it's going to be DNS stats. If you are running Pi-hole v6, you're going to specify it with Pi-hole tac v6. If you don't, the default is Pi-hole, which will work as well. The next line will be URL, and there you'll put the URL or the IP to your Pi-hole. It's going to need HTTPS to verify, and then the password isn't going to be the password to log in, it's going to be the API key. So I'll blur out my API key, but you would put in yours right there. And I did allow insecure true because I don't have a cert and I want to make sure it connects. And then you could just save that, and then you should be able to see it start to populate, and it'll show your stats. You could adjust it as you want. So if you don't want the graph, or if you don't want the top domains, you could have it that way. You could change the time format, whatever it might be, and you can configure it how you like. This dashboard is very similar to Homepage with how it's set up with the YAML code. You have a lot of configurable options, and once you kind of get comfortable with the YAML code syntax, it's really not that hard. I really like how they have the pre-configured pages, so it really gives you something to base off of and go from there. So that's how we would set up Glance dashboard. Like I said, it's another option to use in your Homelab. It's similar to using Homepage because it does have the YAML file to configure. I don't know if I would use this as a daily driver. I don't really know if I want to spend the time to set up a whole nother YAML file for my dashboard like I did with Homepage. When I set up Homepage, it took me hours, and I don't know if I want to go through that whole process again, but Glance is definitely a really cool option. I like how it's kind of sleek and has that nice modern edge to it, but it all depends on how you want to have it configured. It doesn't really have a lot of options for your services and different widgets and anything you might want to import, so I do like how it has that about it. Like I said, the setup was pretty simple, and once you get the hang of the YAML code, it has the pre-configured blocks in there. It makes the setup a lot easier. But that's enough about Glance. I want to thank you all for watching. As always, I'll have links to all the gear in my Homelab down below if you want to check any of it out for yourself. I'll have links to all the docs for Glance to check out, and I'll also have a link to the Discord server if you want to join up. I want to thank you all for watching, and as my buddy Don would say, hack till it hurts.